Oh, Advance in the morning. We're going to continue the Farbrengen. We started last week. We're on page Hey is Chavches. Actually, what I sent to you, I'm not sure what page it's on. It's Chavches. Oizer spielen super bezeer, Pimus Atera. Zimna Chada have it Zichel, Amul Mitra, also come the Rishim. Says in the Zohar that one time the world needed rain, and so the Jewish people, representatives, came before Reb Shimon. Pasuk Amar Klim Shamar Tera Pimus Atera. Dochsidis al Pasuk Shir Amalis Yinativ Anungab Shazachim Gam. He began and said that expression. He opened up and said, doesn't just mean that he said these words. It means he began expounding on these on these words. Elsewhere, the Rebbe said that the word pasach means that you open a new channel. But that's the common introduction for teachings. In the Zohar, pasach, he began, he opened up. So what did he do? What did he open up? He opened up, and it's hard to explain the inner meaning of the words, how good and how sweet it is when brothers sit together. By explaining the chassidus, the inner meaning of these words, how good and how sweet it is when brothers sit together, rain comes. It's hard to rain. I think elsewhere, the Rebbe explained that this actually happened on Lag Baomer. And the Zohar just says it happened one time. He never actually said it happened with me. Seen him super the glass of the Gemara. Nigel Tera Kamachas Yod Shamim, Shachol China Magal, his Aspal Yod Shamim, Aspal Yod Shamim, Agugum Sechas Ekosea Posh Yod Shamim Sikuna. We find another story in the Gemara, a similar story, and not in the inner dimension of the Torah, but in the revealed parts of the Torah in the Gemara, that the world needed rain, and they asked China Magal to pray, and he made a circle on the ground, and he stood in the circle. And he said Hashem is not leaving the circle until rain comes, and then by that way he caused rain to come down as well. So these two stories are a lesson for all of us, that the way to bring rain down can be in two ways, either through prayer, like Cheni HaMagil, or through Torah, like Rabbi Shimon Yochai. And since we were told about these two different paths to bring rain, that means it's a sign that both of these paths have a relationship to us, as we shall later explain. Back in before we get to the different instructions we're supposed to learn from the various ways of making it rain, let's explain what rain is, period. Rain is not just a reference for actual rain. Rain represents all blessing, as the expression Gishmei Bracha, rain of blessing. So it's not just that the rain is itself a blessing, but the rain represents all blessings. This is also indicated by a teaching of the previous Rebbe, who said that a blessing is like rain. Rain is like rain, said the previous Rebbe, and a blessing could only be successful when there's a field first, and the field has been plowed, or at least a little bit, either tiny bit plowed, and also it has been sown, or at least one seed has been planted. Then the rain can accomplish something. And there could be success beyond nature. Although in nature, you could only imagine the minimal result of one seed, and especially when that seed has only been preceded by a tiny bit of plowing, just to be yoitze, tiny bit of plowing was done and one seed was barely planted. Make matters worse, it might be a difficult year and a difficult soil. So in that kind of setting where there's barely any plowing and there's one seed and it's a difficult year and there's no, so our estimates of what kind of result would be from that planting would be very, very skeptical. But that's the accomplishment of a blessing, rain of blessings, that from the tiniest bit, it could be incredible exponential growth. As a story with Yitzchak Avinu, Yitzchak planted, and there was a hard year, and it was a hard soil, and yet there was exponential growth. So that's when a bracha can take place, a bracha can impact, when there's at least something there for the bracha to rest on. There was some kind of plowing, some kind of planting. But there has to be something. That's the point. The point is that it doesn't rest on a bracha cannot rest. As the Zohar says, "B'asri kanya," in an empty place. There has to be something there for the bracha to rest. But to bring the rain down, to bring the blessing down, after the person has plowed and planted, now he wants to bring the bracha. He wants to bring the rain. So there's two ways to bring the rain down. The nigla tera derech pastros da help nit kin kunsen. Lam is palkos borch akshos hanfu. In the revealed parts of Torah, how does the story go? It's very simple. There are no tricks. You stand, you pray to Hashem. That's the way it works. Hey, morning, Blake.
Good morning. Thank you.
So there's no tricks. The only way you could do it is you got to daven, and not just daven, but in the story of Chini Amagel, to make the circle. And then you daven, you beg, and you ask Hashem. That's how it works according to the revealed plane of Torah. But the inner dimension of Torah, which is the ultimate good, tells us there's an easier and sweeter way. Instead of thinking about all the problems, and thinking about how it's a year of famine, the year of a drought, and to delve deeply into how terrible it is and how hard it is. How it makes your life so agonizing and difficult. Until you really feel terrible about it. And then you can turn to Hashem and ask Him really deeply that the rain should come down, as it tells elsewhere in books of Musar, that davening is like an arrow, and the closer you bring it to your heart, the more impact it has. So how do you bring it to your heart? You have to think about the situation you're in until you're bothered by it. And then you ask Hashem deeply and sincerely that thing should change. So instead of doing all that, it's better, there's a sweeter and easier way, and that's to be involved in good things. What did Reb Shimon Yochai do? He didn't think about the terrible plight the Jewish people were in. Instead, he delved into good things. As the Talmud says about another way of bringing blessings, to make groups of just to gather and study Torah, and not just gather and study Torah, but gathering and studying Torah in a way of how pleasant and how good it is when brothers sit together, sitting together and take shalom with peace. So by the fact that just you're sitting together learning Torah without going into the whole difficulty, what's going on, there's no greater blessing, no greater vessel for blessing. God could not find a greater vessel for blessing than peace. And when the Jews learn Torah, then God gives the rain in the way that they needed it, as all the conditions of rain of blessing. Unlike in the story of Chini Amagel, where there were subsequent requests, it should be like this, it should be like that you get to tell Hashem, I didn't want this kind of rain, I didn't want that kind of rain. But with the inner dimension of Torah, there is a different kind of advice of what to do when it's not raining. That is just get involved in studying Torah together with other Jews, with peace, and the rain comes down. Okay, so these are these two paths. I'm going to mention one point. It was another occasion. It's actually just printed. Tavshel Medali, the Lahakas put out Tavshel Medali, and there it wasn't actually like Baomer. It was right in the summertime. Rebbe said the difference between Reb Shimon Yochai and Chini Amagel. To understand this, to first explain exactly why do you make a circle? Why can't you just daven, or why can't he just put himself in a corner and ask Hashem. What's happens? You have to go into a circle. So it explains that being in a circle means that you feel a sense of equanimity in your life. It doesn't matter what Hashem is asking you to do. You're totally devoted to Hashem. It doesn't matter exactly what Hashem is asking you to do. You're in the circle. You're equally surrounded by the circle. Your head and your feet and every part of you is in that circle. It doesn't matter what Hashem is asking you to do. So that's so by the Chiyam Magal being in that circle, being in that state of total devotion to Hashem, he was able to cause a response from Hashem. Similarly, although Rav Shimon Yochai was learning Torah, and Torah is associated with the intellect, nevertheless, his Torah itself was on the level of prayer. And although he was studying, although it was information of Torah that he was sharing and learning, yet there was in his Torah study, there was the element of total devotion to Hashem, and therefore it also caused the rain of bracha. So the Rebbe says that in that Farbrengen that I'm quoting, the Rebbe said that although we can't learn the Kshum B'Yochai his level, but we have to, when we begin studying Torah, you have to have that same kind of thing. As Rebbe once told someone that when a Jew opens a book of Torah, he feels, I'm going to meet Hashem. It has to be the sense of Mesiras Nefesh. You're going to speak to Hashem. But anyways, this Farbrengen never says that just the fact that Jews sit together and study Torah with unity, that itself brings all the brachas down, without the going into the according to the Zohar. So in the there's two roads. There's a road of davening and there's a road of Torah study. Although both roads are necessary, we have to use both of them. However, since we are now on Lag Baomer, the day of the joy of Rav Shimon Yochai, he opened the channel for the easier and sweeter path. Therefore, we're going to go in the path of Rav Shimon Yochai to focus on the good, to study Torah, to reveal parts of Torah, the inner dimension of Torah. And through studying the inner dimension of Torah and the reveal parts of Torah, by doing this, we're going to cause all negative things to be done with. Until all negative things be removed from the world, it says in the Torah that when Mashiach will come, I will remove the spirit of impurity from the world. And not only will it be removed, but as it says in the Pasuk, Hashem says, I will transform all the curses. That Hashem, your God, transform all the curses to blessing. Like we were learning last week, that Rabbi Eliezer, the Rav Shimon Yochai's son, went to friends of Rav Shimon Yochai who gave him what seemed to be the opposite of blessings. And yet, Rabbi Shimon Yochai, he revealed that these were actually very high, lofty blessings. So we see Rav Shimon Yochai has this power of transforming negative to positive. So Allah can come to him. How much more so is this true on the day of his joy that he talks and beseeches Hashem to give good to all Jewish people, all kinds of sustenance. So certainly it's a time that we should go in his path and bring blessings down by studying Torah. The main divine flow that we need, which is also the channel that will bring all other kinds of sustenance that anyone needs, is that we should have the feet of Mashiach, generation of Mashiach, practically in this world, lower than 10 tefachim high. We should see the Goyal Tzedek. We should see our righteous Redeemer here, Lamatim Sar Tefachim, in a way that's in this world, on the ground. The fact that in our generation there's been a revelation of the deepest secrets of the Torah with a tremendous abundance, there's been a revelation of the inner dimension of Torah, that itself indicates that our generation is a generation of Mashiach. Rabbi Shimon Yochai said about the revelation of the secrets of the Torah in his time. The Rashbi said there will not be another generation like this generation, meaning like his generation, until Mashiach comes. So, but now there is that. Now we have that. Now we have the revelation. In our generation, there's been this huge revelation of the inner dimension of Torah. So therefore, therefore we could demand from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that we should not need to have what the Gemara calls the birth pangs of Mashiach. The Gemara says that Mashiach comes, there also will be all kinds of chas v'shalom, all kinds of calamities as birth pangs, as to prepare for this as part of the birth, as part of the arrival of Mashiach. There are all these negative things that have to happen first. But first of all, according to all opinions, whatever had to happen to the world has already happened, according to all opinions. There's no need for any more birth pangs of Mashiach. But according to the Rashbi, even without that, even without all the suffering that's happened already, and therefore precludes the need for any more suffering. Besides that, according to the Balei Lula, according to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, there's no need for anything negative to happen for brachas staff. Instead, we should involve ourselves in good things, studying the inner dimension of Torah, the secrets of the Torah, as has been revealed in our time, in our generation of Mashiach. And by studying the secrets of the Torah that have been revealed in our time, we will merit to actually have the arrival of Mashiach. Va'oz yu kol hashpois. Chaim Peretz.
Yes, sir.
Yalmuka.
Oh, I knew I was asleep.
Va'oz yu goma kol hashpois an yom gashim le'il os esterim. Shkosuv haram le'isav ha'cham le'nim mis Mashiach al g'shupim te'ech masa le'im ikshim v'atim. It says that when Mashiach will come, there won't be any suffering at all. Will only be involved in studying Torah. That's why all the sages and prophets wanted Mashiach to come. We'll have all the blessings without any concealment whatsoever. All the blessings will be there, all the abundance of physical blessings. And that will allow us to focus on the Torah. So, based on what we learned before, there's Chayna Magel's way and there's the Rashbi's way. So there's the way of Chayna Magel was David. The way of the Rashbi is just to reveal Torah. And both these ways accomplish what the world needed. The world needed rain. But since we're in the time of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, we should focus on the way of the Rashbi. So just like we said earlier, that there are two different ways to cause rain, through prayer, through Torah, focusing on the issue and praying and feeling how terrible it is. So too, there are two other paths that are analogous to those paths. There is a path of turning away from evil. And there is the path of doing good. And Baal Shem Tov said, the way to turn away from evil is by doing good. So first of all, there should be the impact of turning away from evil, that in appropriate ways to get rid of all the negativity. In addition, and that's the main thing, we should need to serve Hashem and in doing good to increase in light in every single corner that you're in. Try to add in light whatever you're doing in every corner of your life, and that will automatically push away the darkness, because it says in Tanya, even a little bit of light pushes away a lot of darkness. How much more so a lot of light? So when every person will light their little candle, the candle of God is the soul of man. If each person will light their candle, their neshama, that their neshama, their candle will shine with the light of mitzvahs and the light of Torah, and this will illuminate their area in the world. That will also connect with another Jew's candle and a third Jew's candle, until we have, as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, brothers sitting together. This will bring down the major light that will be revealed in the true Piku'ah, Tzvili Our Days Mamash. That was the end of that segment of the Farbrengen, and the Rebbe continued, and the Rebbe started the song of the Mittel Rebbe's Chassidim. The Rebbe's Chassidim, famous song about how we are traveling and we want to get to the innkeeper. We want to get to the innkeeper's hotel, because there at the innkeeper's hotel there's a lot of mash. That's the nigun that the Rebbe began, and the nigun is of course analogous to how during the time of Golus we are trying to get to the innkeeper, trying to get to the Beis Hamikdash, but on the way we at least have the mashka, we have the vodka, we have the inspiration of the inner dimension of Torah, the inner wine of Torah, the teachings of Chassidus, which is called the wine of Torah. Okay, so the Rebbe says this song that we sang, Chassidim, the Mittler Rebbe would sing this song in his presence, and it's known that the Mittler Rebbe on Lag Baomer would do amazing miracles. He would go out into the field and they would seek all kinds of miracles. Gosh, miracles about physical things, especially blessings for children. In general, in the time of Mittler Rebbe, things were really hard. And even in Mittler Rebbe's personal life, there was poverty. And even regarding miracles, the Mittler Rebbe generally would direct people to his brother, Chaim Avram. So he wouldn't really be open to giving blessings from physical things. But on Lag Baomer, he acted totally different. Lag Baomer was a time that the Mittler Rebbe was in a state of revelation. And even miracles that pertain to physical things he would give, and he would do this out in the field, with time of revelation in the Mittler Rebbe. So what's the connection in the Mittler Rebbe specific in Lag Baomer? The Rebbe said, I never heard it clearly, but maybe, possibly could say, based upon what the Mittler Rebbe's son writes in the introduction to his book, the Torah's Chaim, that when the Mittler Rebbe passed away, he started saying deepest secrets of the Torah, and he passed away when he said the words, when he started explaining the pasuk, with you Hashem is the source of life. When the Mittler Rebbe was explaining those words, with you Hashem is the source of life, that's when he passed away. And similarly, it happened also, that Rizal writes about, and the Rabbah says about the passing of Shimon Yochai. When he passed away also, he was teaching Torah on that day, and there was a fire around the house, and he finished teaching, his last word he said also was the word Chai. So we find a similarity between the Rishon B'Yochai and the Mittler Rebbe. So regarding us, we're in a very difficult time, because the darkness, the double, the quadruple darkness, the time before the coming of Mashiach. The previous Rebbe said, at the end of the night, the last moments before the morning, before the sun shines, it's very, there's a great desire people have at that time to go to sleep. So you need to know that it only depends on the last moments at the end of the darkness, of the double and quadruple darkness of the night of the exile. It only depends on these moments right now. And if during these few moments we won't act when we're supposed to, Chas v'shalom, we could lose all that we accomplished by being up all night. But if we will be strong, and we will manage not to fall asleep during this last few moments of the night, so then not only will we celebrate performing these moments the way they need to be, but we'll also accomplish whatever we tried to accomplish the whole night, which is both the things that we tried to do and things that others tried to do. In other words, whatever the Jewish people tried to accomplish during the entire night of the exile, it rests on us in these last moments. And since there are many things that conceal godliness, and we're limited in many things, so there's the advice. What's the advice for this? The advice is, listen, the advice for this, ever says, is simcha breaks boundaries. That any boundary that there may be, the power of joy has the ability to break through that boundary. It doesn't matter what kind of boundary, whatever kind of boundary may be. There's a joy that can take care of that boundary as well. For a small boundary, you need to have a little bit of joy. And the bigger the boundary is, you need to have a greater joy. But even regarding joy, the previous everyone said in one of his talks that was already printed, what are we happy about? So it seems like from the previous Rebbe's talk that since you can't be happy about your own goodness, so you should be happy about someone else's goodness, because another Jew is for sure good. But the Rebbe says because of the parameters of the exile, concealments of the exile, it's possible that even in someone else you can't find any good. But that's only the rest of the year. But comes Lag Baomer, things are totally different. Lag Baomer is a day of the celebration of Rashbi. The Rashbi Yochai said, I can exempt the whole world from judgment. So if he has the ability to exempt the whole world from judgment, for sure he himself is totally good. And since this good is open and clear, the goodness of Shimon Yochai, we could rejoice in the goodness of Shimon Yochai, who is totally good, completely good. And especially Shmuel Yochai said this is the day of his joy. And since our joy is in the goodness of Shmuel Yochai and connected with the Shmuel Yochai's own joy, through this joy we'll be able to break through all boundaries. As Gemara says, you can rely on Rav Shimon in the time of trouble. The Gemara says this regarding halacha, but this has become the expression that that great sages of Israel have used regarding all kinds of difficulty. So the more difficult the situation may be, and a hard situation may be, the concealment of darkness, the merit of Shmuel Yochai is even greater than what all the difficulties that there are. And you can rely on Shmuel Yochai's merit to exempt us from all the kinds of concealment, all kinds of judgment. And automatically all kinds of, we can rely on Shmuel Yochai that his merit is greater than all of the difficulties and challenges and concealments and judgments. And we can go from this moment to the true and complete Geula. The question, what's needed though? What's needed is we have to remove the concealments and parameters that each person knows they have themselves. And one of the ways to do this is to break the boundary by joy. And on this day, there is the joy of Shmuel Yochai, the goodness of Shmuel Yochai, and that joy and that goodness can break all boundaries. Therefore, it's worthwhile we should sing a song of joy that we sang before, the song of the Mitzvah Rebbe, which by the Mitzvah Rebbe, Shmuel Yochai are very connected. And by all of this talk, we should sing this song with great joy and with the joy of the Rashbi and the goodness of the Rashbi. We could hope that there will be a removal of all concealments and of godliness, and the hidden light that Shmuel Yochai be revealed, mamish lamata, and in this world it will be absorbed in our heart and mind, and it will come to expression practically in our thought and speech and action every day. So he sang the again, and at the end of the Farbrengen, the Rebbe explained the famous story of the Hadassah, when Shmuel Yochai and his son left the cave. So it says it was Friday, and originally they were upset the first time they left the cave because they saw people who were just working. And Hashem told them to go back in the cave for another year. And after the 13th year in the cave, they came back out, and it was Friday, and they saw this guy carrying some packages of bundles of myrtles, and it was almost sundown. So they asked him, "What are you doing?" He said, "It's honor of Shabbos." So they said, "Why do you need two?" He said, "One is because Hashem said remember the Shabbos, and the other is because Hashem said regard the Shabbos." So Shmuel Yochai told his son, look how Jews love mitzvahs, and he was genachas. So when they saw the guy running with these myrtles, one for Zach, one for Shamar, so that took away their previous anger. When the first time they came out of the cave, they were upset, people were involved in gashmis, but this took away their anger. And that allowed them to leave the cave and to get involved in the world and to affect the world. And since what their impact in the world was about, the revelation of the dimension of Torah, that's what their impact was. And that's the key to bringing Mashiach. As the Zohar says, with this book of the Zohar, we will greet Mashiach. So it comes out, this event is what caused the coming of Mashiach. This event was the beginning of the coming of Mashiach. And so this understood regarding our time, we just need to finish and complete the arrival of bringing Mashiach, because this, and how do we bring it? Learn from the story about the guy carrying the two Hadassah. What do we learn? The previous Rebbe said that we are now on Friday. That's the time we are in history. We're now on Friday afternoon. We're about to arrive at the coming Mashiach. We have to get ready for Shabbos. Shabbos means the time of Mashiach. And the way to get, there's not a lot of preparation needed for the coming Mashiach. And just like for Shabbos, a lot of halachas, a lot of laws you need to learn about Shabbos. You need to learn about Zachar and about Shomer, about remembering Shabbos and guarding Shabbos. So this is a lesson learned from the story that since we are now in Friday afternoon, and there's no time to learn all the laws. You have no time. And you can't, it's also impossible to demand from a Jew who's faryokt and farharavit. Here's that. He's faryokt and farharavit. You probably know what that means, right? He's burdened and he's upset. He's burdened and he's overworked with things in this world. And you can't demand of him that he should have all of the details of all the laws of Shabbos. And therefore, it's enough that Rebbe says to run with two Hadassah. What that means is to decide that you want to do both Zachar and Shomer. You want to do both. And to do a small thing, take 2 hadassim, one for Zachar, one for Shamar. And by doing this, you cause to bring in the world the true and complete Geula. What does it mean to take a myrtle? Why specifically a myrtle? A myrtle brings a good fragrance. We find that like on Sukkot, that the myrtle has a good fragrance and no taste. So it's known that a fragrance is something that's useful when someone faints. When someone faints, you give them a strong fragrance, and that's how you rouse them from their faint. Now you renew their energy. As it says in Chassidus that there are 2 different holes in the nose, and the right one, the left one, that means what they mean in Kabbalah, life of life. So the bottom line is, in order to arouse a person from a state of faint that we're now in, you need to bring in the fragrance. What's the fragrance? The fragrance of the inner dimension of Torah, the fragrance, as it says in Song of Songs, the fragrance of your good oil. And through this we cause the coming of Mashiach. And about Mashiach it says that Hashem will give him the fragrance of the fear of Hashem. It says that Mashiach will have the fragrance, will be able to, so to speak, smell and know who is right and wrong. So we now can understand the idea of taking the myrtles on Friday, that the preparation, great preparation for Shabbos, great preparation for the day of Al Shabbos, is by taking the myrtle. What's the myrtle? The myrtle means the inner dimension of Torah, spreading the walls from the Chassidus to the outside. Practically, what this means is that when several Jews will speak to each other about spreading Chassidus to the outside, or even if they don't speak to each other, but each person will do what they can themselves to illuminate their corner of the world, and that will, their impact, their efforts will add to the efforts of what was done previously to push away the darkness in the whole world, and this will bring to the world. Okay, so basically we're saying that they can take the myrtle means bringing something that will wake up from a state of faint, which means the teaching is the inner dimension of Torah, spreading chassidus. And this will bring to the world, together with Shumba Yochai and all the Rebbeim after Shumba Yochai, and especially the Rebbe of our generation, this will bring down the Geula Mitzvah Shlema, B'shir B'yis B'shir Zekenu, Matzah Tvachim, Gol Yidan, Chaim Chaim. Don't forget your